that Harden has been traded to the Nets to form a super team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It's a 4-team deal with the Rockets getting a ton back, including Victor Oladipo from the Pacers, and multiple first-round picks for the 8-time All-Star. Obviously, we had to bring in NBA analyst Slick Rick back to us to get his reaction. So, Slick, what is your reaction to this huge trade?
The Brooklyn Nets have decided that, you know what, nobody's playing defense in the league. Maybe we can win it just by playing all offense. The deal includes two of their best defensive players, Taurean Prince and Jarrett Allen. The last of configuration that I saw going to Cleveland. Karis LeVert, meanwhile, is basically averaging the same thing that James Harden is and has demonstrated that he's willing to come off the bench. So I get it from the Houston Rockets standpoint. I guess I get it from the Cleveland Cavaliers standpoint in terms of that they're adding yet another center, but let's keep just churning it and hoping something comes out of it. But the Brooklyn Nets were not a good defensive team in large part because they do not have good defensive players, and now they have fewer of those. So while it looks very exciting, and I'm sure anybody who plays fantasy basketball is thinking they've just walked into the finals, I don't see that it solves any of the problems that they had. In spite of the firepower of Kyrie and KD and how good they are, their team chemistry wasn't good, their defense wasn't good, and this doesn't change that equation whatsoever.
Slick, I feel you. I'm going to take this approach. I said this before. If there can be addition by subtraction, there can be subtraction by addition. I don't love two aspects of it, Slick. The first aspect is James Harden just showed everybody on a national stage that you can truly baby your way out of an organization. If it gets too tough and you don't want to deal with it, you can just force the other team's hand if you just stop trying and stop showing up. Literally, stop showing up. The second aspect of it is you can have a compilation of a lot of great individuals and not have a great team. Like you can have a compilation of a lot of individual talent, but you might not have the greatest compilation of a team. And at the end of the day, basketball is a team sport. So bring all the all-stars and superstars you want at certain times. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. I'm always reminded of the 04 Pistons or the 03 Pistons going up against the Lakers. It would have been 04. The Lakers had Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Shaq, the late, great Kobe Bryant. But the Pistons had a great team, and y'all remember how that one worked out. So I am not going to jump on the Brooklyn Nets train just yet, not just because they got an all-star.
I'm going to be real. I was already on the Brooklyn Nets train, a little bumpier ride than I expected, but now this train is going faster. I don't know to what degree, to what miles per hour did it just increase, but let's be real about this in the NBA. You talked about, hey, let's just play offense and see where it gets us. How about an NBA that went from big threes and super teams down to dynamic duos and others? So when you look at the Lakers and you look at the Clippers and the front runners, whoever we're thinking that will make it to the finals, a lot of dynamic duos out there. Now you got a real big three. So you zig when everyone else is zagging. That's interesting. I had some criticism, harsh criticism for James Harden, who I respect fully on the court, but not the way he went about his business. But I will even criticize my take that was criticizing James Harden's actions. Let's just use my own social experience as an example. I've been a bad boyfriend to Kim, but then I've been a good boyfriend to the rest of them. You ever just get in a certain scope, in a certain way of acting, just so you can get what you want? Then when you get what you want, you stop acting that same way. Maybe James Harden, and this is interesting, I want to ask you this, Slick Rick. Kyrie Irving in his absence, was there any connection towards the leverage of the opportunity of acquiring James Harden in this position? Kyrie disappears, and all of a sudden you can't ask Brooklyn for everything because, look, they're already wounded over there. Did that play a part in this whole transaction?
Marcellus, you're asking me to look into the mind of Kyrie the artiste. That's like asking me, why did Picasso paint that the way that he did? I wouldn't begin to possibly try to answer that question. There's a lot of things going on with Kyrie Irving. I don't believe that was one of them, that this was a protest. Until you get James Harden here, I'm I'm going to find other reasons or other things to do, including my a birthday party. No, I don't believe that was an element. But Marcellus, to your point about a big three, I really believe that if we look closely at how championships have been won the last couple of years, that it's a misnomer to think that big threes have won it. What was the big threes Lakers? What was the Lakers' big three this past year? They really didn't have one.
No.
It was a collection of great players around a LeBron James and an Anthony Davis who fit. And by the way, were both two-way players, so they could lead you at both ends of the floor. Look at the Toronto Raptors. What was their big three? There wasn't one. There was an amalgam of players who contributed. I dare say even the Golden State Warriors. You look at them with Draymond and Steph now. That's a big two. They should be dynamic again. They're not. Why? Because they don't have the same depth and versatility. And Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre don't fit the way Klay Thompson did with Draymond and Steph. So looking at it, yes, they're big names. Yes, it's a powerful offensive team. But do those pieces actually fit together? I immediately, when this happened, and I always reference this, Carmelo Anthony and Allen Iverson once upon a time were brought together with the Denver Nuggets. And everybody was like, whoa, stand back, watch out, see where they go. They didn't go anywhere because while they're both great individual players, their games didn't necessarily fit. And I brought up usage rate and you guys bagged me, but Harden's usage rate went down this year with the Rockets. Just imagine where it's going to go if he's playing with KD and Kyrie. I just don't see how a brand new Steve Nash, even with Mike D'Antoni next to him and his relationship with Harden, is going to make this work to the level that people expect. Because to you, Marcellus, like you already have them, they're in the finals. I mean, I've already seen that on Twitter. I don't believe that they are a finals type team, and yet that's what the expectation is.
Agree with you, Slick. Let's talk about this, though.
What?
We talk about dynamic duos and dynamic trios. Can we talk about dynamic egos? We talk about the duos and the trios. We have to talk about the egos. Look at the NBA champions the last several years. The Lakers, there really was no ego on that team because everybody knew who the captain was. The Raptors, there was no ego on that team because everybody knew who the captain was. Then you want to talk about the Warriors when Kevin Durant joined that squad. Steph Curry, a two-time MVP. He could have said, no, this is my team, but he deferred to Kevin Durant and said, hey, KD, you can run the show, although Steph clearly could have and is capable of running the show. When you talk about this Brooklyn team, whose team is it? Because, again, there is only one basketball, a lot of weapons, a lot of threats who can use that basketball to score a lot of points. But whose team is it? As we acknowledge dynamic duos and as we acknowledge dynamic trios, we also have to pay attention to all of those dynamic egos.
Interesting point right there. But I have to push back because we know that big threes have won championships. Obviously, you're talking about the Lakers now, but look at LeBron James a decade ago was winning championships in a big three situation. And I push back on it. Well, the last 2 years, we haven't seen a big three out there winning a championship. Well, I would question, was there even a big three out there to face? Look at last year, which was a different year, weird year. And the Lakers didn't face any big threes. They faced duos. Portland, y'all know what I'm talking about. Houston, Denver, Miami. I mean, Miami tried to come with like a quad, a Voltron, but that wasn't even a dynamic duo necessarily. And then you go the year before, the Raptors, who do they face? The wounded Golden State Warriors. So it's... When they had a big three in Golden State, KD, Steph, and Clay, boy, stop. Y'all know how that turned out. So I'm just thinking right now, egos, they're interesting because we're all...
Huge. They're huge.
They're huge, but they are... Look, you and I both have egos, but they integrate well. Now, how do they integrate in those three egos?
You got to come back to this one. You got to come back to this one.
It goes based on how secure you are and who you are, how secure you are in your legacy, and how secure you are to the point where you will put this in front of you. I think that will work in Brooklyn, but hey, both of us, actually all three of us, will be watching that to see if it ever happens. Coming up, we've got much, much more on this huge breaking news. James Harden is on the move. That's next. Speak for yourself.